I call to order the regular meeting of the City Council, October 7th, 2014. Councilwoman McCullough has an excused absence for illness, and so let the record state that 4 of the members are accounted and present for, and Councilwoman McCullough has an excused absence. Tonight we were going to have a housing authority meeting, which would have commenced prior to this, mainly just closed session activity, but due to a lack of a quorum, that meeting did not take place and will take place at a subsequent meeting. If you had any public comments about that, please bring them to the city clerk now. If you didn't, then we'll move on. So have we had any public comments regarding?
We've had no requests.
Okay, great. That brings us to the public session, and we will start with an invocation led by Joshua Pinto, senior pastor of Faro Church. And Joshua, if you'd come to the podium here, and we'll receive tonight's invocation.
I would like to thank the city officials for this invitation here today. Would you please bow your head as I pray? Dear Heavenly Father, first let me say thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the health we need to fulfill our callings. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing the appropriate responsibilities. I also thank you for the freedom to embrace you or the freedom to reject you. Thank you for loving us, for your boundless and gracious nature. In the scriptures, you say that citizens ought to obey their governing authorities. You have established them to promote peace, order, and justice. Therefore, I pray for our mayor and for the different levels of city officials, in particular for this meeting. I am asking that you would graciously grant all of us the wisdom to govern in the midst of conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is disagreement, peace in our lives, and safety for our families. I pray for the agenda set before us today. Please give us assurance of what pleases you and what benefits those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Lake Forest. In the name that is above all names, in the name of Jesus I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. And tonight the Pledge of Allegiance was to be led by Council Member McCullough, but I'll ask Councilman Bass if you wouldn't mind.
Will the audience please stand and then repeat with me? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There were no presentations tonight, so that brings us to our report from our student liaison, Joseph Hanna from El Toro High School. So it's great to have you here tonight, Joseph.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. This is Joseph Hanna, your student liaison, reporting on October 7th, 2014. I'd like to start by saying how excited I am and honored to be in the position I am tonight. The ones who held this position before me have left very big shoes for me to fill, and I intend on continuing the tradition of excellence. I'd also like to draw your attention to the tie that I'm wearing. Not only is it the highly fashionable Charger colors, it is signed by last year's City Council liaison, Jeff Dominic. At our ASB banquet, formerly known as AS Banquet, the previous officers pass on a goodie bag with things that would help them perform their job better. And my goodie bag was this tie. He wanted to start a new tradition where the City Council liaisons would put their name onto the tie in the year that they served on. Since Jeff was the first one to start his tradition, he's the only one on there. At El Toro, everyone's gearing for a huge Wizard of Oz themed homecoming. Yesterday marked the start of homecoming week filled with class competitions, dress-up days, which all leads to the big homecoming pep rally. Monday, Chargers dressed up as green as the Emerald City. Today, we dressed up as we got hit by a tornado. Tomorrow is modeled after the Scarecrow himself. Thursday is If I Only Had a Brain, Nerd Day, leading up to Friday's dress-up day, Lost in Oz, where Chargers dressed up as tacky tourists. Today, students enjoyed an extended snack known as Homecoming Fair, where the various clubs and groups sell treats, and the homecoming court is involved in the royal flush. where Chargers attempt to throw a softball at a lever leading to a toilet filled with ice-cold water. Once the lever is hit, the water is dumped all over the nominee. As one of the nominees for king, let me assure you, is very cold. At the highly anticipated homecoming pep rally, the homecoming court is announced and will walk across a yellow brick road. Our Charger alumni staff members and the 4 classes compete to see the Wizard, and everyone gets hyped for our huge homecoming game versus Tesoro. Our Charger football team is 5-1 going into league. Just last week, we beat Bell Gardens at our house 52-7. El Toro is now ranked 44 in California and 6th in the CIF Southern section. I hope to see the stands be filled with humongous amounts of Charger spirit leading us to victory. At the game, guests will be mystified with our homecoming halftime show and queen coronation. This is a real treat considering this is the first time El Toro has had their homecoming queen crowned on El Toro soil. The queen will have to wait for the dance to find out who the king is. The king's coronation is scheduled at the dance, while There's No Place Like Homecoming dance is Saturday, October 11th. Students will there dance the night away with a $7,000 DJ package filled with treats and memories to start with. That's all for tonight, and until next time, this is Joe Sohana signing off, and as always, go Chargers.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Councilman Voights and I were both at the football game this last Friday night, and I know it was a spectacular one. So 52-7. I left at the end of the third quarter, and it was 52-7. So I think some of the sophomores probably got to get into the game in the fourth quarter there and have some fun. So that brings us to the public comments portion.
Mayor, I hope people didn't leave early on the week before against Trabuco. That was an exciting game at the very end.
Absolutely. So that brings us to the public comments portion of the agenda. At this time, members of the public may address the City Council regarding any item within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. No action may be taken on items not listed on the agenda unless authorized by law. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person, overall time limit of 30 minutes for the public comments portion of the agenda. Any person wishing to address the City Council on any matter, whether or not it appears on this agenda, is requested to complete a request to speak form available under the exit sign over to my left, your right. The completed form is to be submitted to the city clerk prior to an individual being heard by the City Council. Whenever possible, lengthy testimony should be presented to the City Council in writing with 8 copies and only pertinent points presented orally. Additionally, a request to register written comments form is available at that same counter over there under the exit sign. And then finally, when you do come to the mic, if you just state your name and the city you live in, we'd appreciate that. And we have some public comments tonight on non-agenda items.
Yes, Andrew O'Connor, followed by Marcia Rudolph.
Andrew O'Connor, City of Foothill Ranch, resident since 1990, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm here tonight to talk about the crosswalk at Cabrillo and Rue de Fortuna. I began this process back on April 6th with the City of Lake Forest with Doug Anderson. Ask Lake Forest ticket number 4268. I'm very concerned about the street lighting at this crosswalk. Doug has worked with this Southern California Edison. And in September, they've upgraded the lamp, but unfortunately, it still has not provided lighting across for the crosswalk. And as you know, we've had a resurfacing project in Foothill Ranch, and the streets have gone from carbon gray to jet black, which is causing more of a problem now to see a pedestrian crossing the street. And I've witnessed 2 close calls with people turning onto Cabrillo from Fortuna, almost hitting a pedestrian. Our demographics of our community is changing. We have more grandparents living with the families, and they're accessing the library, and they're going across Cabrillo up Rue de Fortuna to the other neighborhoods. On the back side, I'm not much of an artist, but I did make a drawing here. It's not to scale, and I've highlighted in yellow where light poles are at and my best guess of illumination. And the new lamp that was installed in September 2014 does not shine across Fortuna. It goes laterally up Fortuna. So it was a good try by Edison to improve the problem, but it didn't solve it. We still have this issue. So I'm calling on the city, mayor, your staff, to accelerate this program. We only have 3 weeks left before we go into daylight savings time. This project has been going on for 6 months. I think it should be wrapped up by now. And again, I ask for you to follow up on this. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And I assume that Public Works is working on it. So this is an Edison issue, though, right? It would be Am I correct? Okay, sounds good. All right, thanks.
Marcia Rudolph, followed by Bob Holtzclaw.
Good evening. Seems kind of odd to have an empty chair at the dais. Personal observation. Two things. Number one thing, I passed out to everyone at the dais, and there are a number of them over by where the agendas are. I don't want you to forget the fact that we have problems with the good old mosquitoes, that they can cause havoc in your life, in your children's lives, and there are those who have had some serious illnesses because of mosquito bites. So this was just another reminder, and there's some other odds and ends and information in there for your information. Secondly, we're now looking at the 12th year anniversary of the death of one of our officers, Sergeant Matthew Davis, who was more an officer for Mission Viejo, but knowing the way the Sheriff's Department services, we had service from him also. He was a motor officer and was very well loved by by the other people in the Sheriff's Department, particularly other motor officers. So in my effort to not let people go unnoticed and unappreciated, please remember Sergeant Matthew Davis in your prayers and his children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Holtzclaw, followed by Bill Turpett.
Hello, my name is Bob Holtzclaw. I live here in Lake Forest, and I want to thank everybody for coming to the Meet the Candidates. I think we had a good showing, and I know some people were a little bit apprehensive about showing up, but I think, like I mentioned before, I says we're going to be very fair with our questioning, and I think everybody got a fair shot, and I think it turned out really well. Also, I think there was one from Cox. I think most of you attended that one that are running, and Catherine, I'm sure, she fell ill, so I don't think she was able to attend. But anyhow, I just think that their questioning might have been a little bit different than ours, and it might have given more people a little insight. But I think all of them it turned out pretty well, and we had a pretty good showing, like I mentioned before. Also, I just want to kind of mention on the side, I go to the California Institute over there on Irvine Boulevard. Vector Control was also there, and they mentioned that there's 4 people that have died from West Nile, and it's 2 in Santa Ana, 1 in Huntington Beach, and 1 in Seal Beach. So, like Marcia just mentioned about mosquitoes, it might be a good deal to, if you have any standing water around the house, to empty those things, because it only takes them a few weeks, and they're ready. And they'll be, you can see the little wiggly things right there in the water. You know what that is. Okay? Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Bill Turpett, followed by Araceli Vasquez.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Bill Turpett. I'm a resident of Costa Mesa, and I own a 4-plex apartment house on Cigarro Street. I'm here just to address the issue from the notice that the city sent to all the owners on the west side of Cigarro Street. I think there are about 12 buildings there, involving the relocation of the dumpsters that are located in the alley onto the property. I have previously sent a written statement and a petition that I was given by the neighbors. I think you've probably already received those, so I'm not going to hand those out. I did have a couple of pictures in case you can't visualize what I'm talking about. I don't know if you have a projector. Well, this is a photograph of the dumpster behind my unit in the alley. You can see it's a pretty neat arrangement. When it's not so neat is when someone drives by or otherwise places a old mattress or a beat-up chest of drawers in the alley. The proposed solution is to move the dumpsters on the property, which is not an unreasonable request, but the site was not designed for putting a dumpster in this particular location. This location at the end of this parking space is abutting the door to one bedroom and underneath the window to another bedroom. I know there are about 6 people sleeping within a relatively short distance of that dumpster. And so that's the concern that's been brought to my attention by the neighbors, by the residents. The existing situation has worked pretty well. I've only owned the building for 5 years, but during that time there have been at least 2 occasions when the former trash hauler arrived at my dumpster and found a piece of furniture in the alley and took a picture, sent the picture to me with a bill. I paid the bill. When I knew whose furniture it was, I billed the tenant. When I didn't, I paid the bill myself. So as far as I can tell, the system has worked pretty well. And it's worked for over 25 years that way, according to my long-term tenants. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention, let you know that we'd like to work out a solution, perhaps meet with someone on site to talk about it. But you've got a lot of unhappy homeowners out there. And I believe Araceli Vasquez, who's been a tenant in my building for a long, long time, wanted to address this as well. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Araceli Vasquez, followed by Jim Gardner.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council member. My name is Ana Araceli Vasquez, and I live in Saguaro Street for 25 years. And I'm not happy to move the garbage inside in the parking lot. And special because worms, rat, everything coming over there. And please put attention in this, especially for children and the old people. I'm sorry. It's very hard for me because my children growing over there, and I think my room is very close with the place where the city want to put the garbage can over there, and I'm sure the smell, everything coming to my room. Please take up it and that one, and that's one I want to tell you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jim Gardner.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jim Gardner. I live in Lake Forest. I'm glad Mrs. McCullough is not here tonight. I want to talk about some recent events. A few months ago, I was looking at her use of public monies on travel expenses, and I found what looked like to me irregularities. It looked like, in fact, she had violated the law in doing that. But I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a city employee. So I prepared a report, 40-page detailed report, as only I can do, as you well know. And I asked for a confidential meeting with Mr. Dunnock. He and I have done this before. In that manner, spares people embarrassment, spares the city embarrassment, and gets a problem solved. Well, Mr. Dunnock tells me no, he doesn't want to meet with me, because that's his boss. And I tell you, Mr. Dunnock, I thought I was your boss. I thought Bob Holtzclaw was his boss. I thought all these people out here were his boss. But no, he wouldn't meet with me, because Mrs. McCullough's his boss. Well, the city attorney won't meet with me either. Solve this problem confidentially. He thinks it's a conflict of interest. Police chief won't meet with me. His superiors don't think that's a good idea. Nobody wants to handle this. So, in fact, I had to turn it over to the district attorney, who's now handling it. Meantime, I sent it to the Attorney General of the state of California. The top law enforcement person in the state of California says it's Mr. Dunnock's job to do this. It should be handled that way. Oh, by the way, I sent it to the mayor, too, trying to get it handled confidentially. The mayor was rude enough not to respond at all. So now it's in the hands of the district attorney. I've gone public with it. It's now in the press. It's an embarrassment to the city. I'm sure it's an embarrassment to Mrs. McCullough, and it's an unpleasant thing for me to have to do. Now, as far as BB&K's opinion that this is not something that should be done, BB&K, by the way, the people who used to advise the City of Bell, and we know what happened at the City of Bell. As far as that's concerned, apparently the City of Santa Ana has no problems investigating their mayor. I went on Google and I did a search. Apparently, all over the United States, city councils have no problem having their attorneys or themselves investigating the behavior of council people. So what the heck is going on in Lake Forest when the city manager, the city attorney, and the police chief all refuse to do the duty that the top law enforcement professional in the state of California says is their duty to do? And what's wrong with the mayor that he won't handle this? Instead, we now have an embarrassment to the city and an embarrassment to Mrs. McCullough. And I apologize to the city, and I apologize to Mrs. McCullough. On the other hand, it seems to me that there are illegal activities going on and that this should be pursued and should have been investigated confidentially. Unfortunately, it wasn't. Thank you.
We've had no additional requests.
All right, thank you. That brings us to the consent calendar warrant register item number 1. All matters listed under the warrant register are considered routine and will be enacted by one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the City Council, the public, or staff request specific items be removed from the warrant register for separate action. Council members, do you have anything you want to pull, and anything from the audience?
We've had no requests.
I need to record an abstention, Mr. Mayor, on the payment to Cummings and White for $1,400 is for an action I'm a party to, and as such, I would like to abstain voting on this particular item. For the rest, I second Councilman Voigt's motion.
Okay. There's a motion and a second with an abstention recusal on that one particular item for Mayor Pro Tem Nick. Any further discussion or any other items need to be pulled? Seeing none, council members cast your votes. Item passes 4-0 with Councilwoman McCullough excused absence and an abstention on one item from Mayor Pro Tem Nick. Brings to the consent calendar miscellaneous items 2 through 5. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the City Council, the public, or staff request specific items be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Have we had anyone from the public asked to pull any of these items?
We've had no requests.
Okay. Council members, items 2 through 5, anything you want to pull?
Move the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion and a second on the consent calendar, items 2 through 5. Seeing no further discussion, council members cast your votes. Those items pass 4-0 with an excused absence from Councilmember McCullough. And that brings us to item number 6. One we're all very excited about.
Agenda Item 6, Lake Forest Civic Center Project Update, submitted by Deputy City Manager, Director of Management Services.
Thank you, Mr. Members of the City Council. I'm going to turn this over to Deborah Rose, Deputy City Manager, and her staff to provide a presentation on this item.
Mayor and members of the City Council, tonight we will be providing an update on our Civic Center project. For the benefit of the audience, we're going to start with some project history. Then I'm going to review the current conceptual site plan and the current project status. At that point, I'm going to turn it over to our Administrative Services Manager, Hannah Shin-Haydorn, and she's going to go over some of the program elements of the Civic Center project. And when she's finished, I will talk briefly about next steps for the project. So the story of the Civic Center really starts with the closure of the Marine base, the defeat of the International Airport at El Toro, and the launch of the Opportunity Study. The Opportunity Study placed Lake Forest in a unique position. the city was able to shape the final development of the community and obtain funding for desired public amenities. Through a comprehensive process, 800 acres of vacant land are now being transformed into signature residential communities. Major public facilities, such as Alton Parkway and the Lake Forest Sports Park, were funded through this effort. And now we're ready to launch the next major public facility, which is the Civic Center. So here's the site of our future Civic Center. And to give you an orientation of this map, the small star on the upper left is where we are now, here at our Lake Forest City Hall. And then the oval that's kind of at 4 o'clock on that picture is the future Civic Center site. And it's right next to the Serrano Creek Trail. And it's part of, next to the Serrano Summit development, which is owned by the Irvine Ranch Water District, or IRWD. Now, our project is currently in the environmental permitting stage, and our site is within the Army Corps of Engineers Special Area Management Plan, which dictates how the site can be developed. So working in partnership with IRWD, the Army Corps, and other resource agencies, we've come up with a conceptual site plan that delivers on all of our planned amenities. And here it is. As you can see, there are 3 buildings, open areas, public parking, and secured parking on about 8 acres. And this plan protects sensitive environmental areas, and it meets the goals of the Special Area Management Plan. So starting with the Community Center building, that's about 32,000 square feet, and it's a split facility. Half of that is a dedicated senior center, the other half is a community meeting center. Next to it is an outdoor plaza. It's about 15,000 square feet, and it would be available for outdoor functions such as receptions or outdoor lectures and so forth. Next to it is the council chamber / performing arts venue, which is about 12,500 square feet. And that's adjacent to the administrative offices. So that is essentially City Hall, and it's comprised of about 46,000 square feet, 7,500 square feet of which is a community policing center. The site also features about 450 parking spaces, 68 of which are in a secure parking area. Now, how did we know what to program here at our conceptual site? Well, we talked to the community. We had a city council planning workshop, we had a web survey, we had a community workshop, and we also asked questions in our 2012 community survey. And what we were really seeking to elicit from the public was, what are your ideas for the look and feel of the site? What activities do you want to do at your civic center? And what public facilities do you believe are missing in the community that we can meet through this new civic center? And so that leads us to our concept plans. And the first is the craftsman details as part of the design. And we really heard from the community that they wanted the design to reflect Lake Forest and maintain the aesthetics that define Lake Forest as a community. And so they felt that this style really kind of harkened back to the farming origins of this community and also spoke to the natural features of Lake Forest. You think of the eucalyptus forest, you think of the wilderness park, and all of these pictures are really there to elicit that when people visit our civic center. The next part of the concept plan is landscape and water features. And again, this was to emphasize the pastoral landscape and the natural topography that's unique to Lake Forest. And so people really talked about wanting to have a really high quality outdoor area that they could also meet. So it wasn't just going to the Civic Center and walking into buildings, but that there were outdoor spaces and that it felt like a natural setting where you're kind of set away from the hustle and bustle of perhaps being on a busy street or something like that. And then finally, the concept plan also contains details for our plaza area, and that's that 15,000 square foot area. A lot of people in our community workshop talked about the Civic Center really being a destination, and part of that could be achieved through these outdoor spaces. And so they talked about, wouldn't it be great to have an outdoor lecture or some outdoor reception prior to a performance in the community center? Or be able to have outdoor dining when you're having some other event at the meeting center. And so we really tried to look at how could we enhance this project by having some really high quality outdoor spaces. So with that, I am going to turn it over now to Hannah Shinhadorn, and she's going to talk about the program plan for the center.
One that will be maximized at all times. Now, this large conference room also set aside space for a small dais / stage area for presentations, and as well as fully set up for audio video. Now, in addition to the 3 smaller rooms, we'll have a complement of 5 additional conference rooms, ranging in size to accommodate the 6 all the way to the audience. And we have a full service kitchen that we share between the 2 facilities, so user groups will have the option of catering any events. In addition, this will also have a dedicated entry and lobby. Next, I want to talk about one of the most innovative amenities I believe the Civic Center will be offering, which is the council chambers and performing arts center. So, through the use of careful planning and current technology, including fixed seating and audio and visual technology, we're able to get 2 uses out of 1 space. So you can see on the left, you see it in council chamber mode. There's room for 7 people at the dais, and there's 2 mobile stations for staff, as well as a mobile podium. And it includes seating for 180. Now, on the right-hand side, you can see the uses for the performing arts venue. So you can move those mobile pieces. You're able to move the dais and extend the stage that's 25 feet deep, and also has room for the curtains or decorative panels, and also seats 180. And we've also built in a projection area that will house audio-visual controls and any other electronics. And then there's also a ticket area to sell tickets prior to the event, and a concession area for snacks. So this is a great multiple use of 1 facility, and something that we're really trying to look for in each of the amenities. Community policing is also a top priority for the residents that we serve for a survey. And currently at Quickport City Hall, police services occupies just under 3,000 square feet. This is comprised of a small reception area, a few administrative offices, and a larger office space level 2. For the new Civic Center, we're estimating a police service center of approximately 7,500 square feet, which would accommodate an EOC as well as additional amenities. Now, we're assuming that the county services that are currently housed in county facilities will remain there. We still would like to look out for the future and potential services that might be looking for us. We'd also like to add a locker and shower area to support longer-term deployments. And housing an EOC there, staff may also have to remand an EOC for long periods of time, so that would also provide an additional level of comfort. Now, another benefit to housing the police services at the new Civic Center is we'd like to have a dedicated entrance directly off the parking lot, so community police can be offered with longer hours in traditional city hall offices and not have to coordinate with any of those other functions. And finally, I'd like to talk about the administrative offices. So we don't believe that people would be coming to the Civic Center for administrative services. We believe they'll be coming for the amenities and the wonderful destination locations, but we do recognize that some of the people still prefer to have a city hall in person. We also recognize that in today's online world, people are expecting demanding services be delivered to them when they want and where they want. So we are always looking at technology to make sure to meet that expectation. But we also want people who come into City Hall to be able to have a very efficient, pleasant, easy experience. So to that end, we want to include items such as information service kiosks, front and center of the lobby, so when they walk in, conduct any self-service activities that they're interested in. We also want to make sure that for any of those in-person transactions, we have offered such as passport processing, every public services, or anyone wants to come to a building check, that they have space to roll out their plans and have rooms that are semi-private. So we recognize that there's lots of ways to get services. We are always just a friendly email, visit, or phone call away, and we will continue to be so. But we also want to make sure that our residents and our businesses have the options of how they want to interact. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Debbie to talk about next steps.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. Next steps. We are awaiting final approval of our environmental permits, and based on feedback we've received from the resource agencies, we believe this will happen by the end of the year. Now, we're also moving into the design process, which will lead to the production of construction plans, which will lead to construction. Yay! So, in preparation for that, we have 2 requests for proposals on your agenda tonight. The first is for architecture and design, and the second is for construction management services using the CM multi-prime delivery method. And this delivery method involves the owner of the project, which would be the city, separately and directly contracting with each prime contractor on the project. The project construction manager would coordinate the multi-prime contracts and serve as the owner's representative to manage the project. And the constructor's manager's role would be to protect the owner's or the city's interest throughout the project. Now, this approach has been used in both the public and the private sector as an efficient and effective means of delivering complex construction projects. Also, we are in the process of modifying documents with our project partner to reflect our new Civic Center concept plan, and those documents will be presented to the council at a future meeting. So with that, I'd just like to leave you with one thought. You know, as we approach November 1st and we approach the opening of the sports park, we're all really excited about that facility, and we all think it's wonderful. But I'd just like you to keep that emotion in mind when you think about the Civic Center, because I truly believe, and I know Hannah does too, that this Civic Center is just going to knock your socks off. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you very much for the fabulous presentation. Are there any questions regarding the staff report itself?
Thank you. Just as we talk about the upgrading from the 6,000 to 11,000 for a senior center, and we have a civic council chamber, civic chamber, and performing arts center. Is that going to be an elevated seating for the performing arts civic center seating? Okay, just to get a concept of that, Public Works, do we know what the size of this room is?
Not offhand. She's got it. They're very prepared.
You can walk it off, right?
For the entire room. So this is less than half of what our new. Just to get a concept of that for everybody out there.
It's about the same size. It's estimated at 4,800 square feet for the main seating area, and then there are approximately, it looks like 2,000 square feet for the additional storage and the production room and the concession area and laboratories. But the main seating area is approximately the size of this.
So it's the size of this area right here. Okay, and that's not including the dais and the stage. Because if the performing arts, that's 2,000 square feet more.
The main seating space that's estimated 4,800 square feet includes the 180 person capacity seating with the movable dais and the stage.
Okay, so that's excluding the stage and the dais.
No,
It includes it. Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Just to the staff report. Okay. Well, just if there are questions about the report, then I want to go to any public comment.
We've had no requests.
And whatever you want.
Well, of course, the first question I have to ask is, what's generally the financing plan on this, the funding of this construction?
Mr. Members of the City Council, the financing for this project will come similar to what we've done with the sports park. We anticipate paying cash. It would be coming from developer fees out of the OSA. So I'd have to defer to our finance director at this juncture, but we fundamentally have paid cash for the entire sports park. The dollars that are coming in from this point future would be dedicated to the Civic Center, unless it's otherwise designated for like street improvements. And so we think all of that cash, that the value of the OSA, as we identified in the staff report, approximates $200 million, and that's a considerable amount of money. And a good portion of that, obviously, is building the Civic Center. And if the development continues at the pace which we see it, we think we'll be paying cash. There could be a possibility, much as there was for the sports park, for some kind of bridge loaning, but ultimately the development fees pay for the entire facility.
Okay, and the land is, we don't have to pay cash for that then?
The city already owns the land. It was dedicated by the Irvine Ranch Water District as a condition in their development agreement with the city when their property was rezoned. So it was offered as an irrevocable offer of dedication, IOD. The city's already accepted it. We already own the 9 acres.
Okay. Then a couple comments on the construction management approach and the multi-prime construction manager and all that. There's a great explanation of it. My experience has been seeing it both in the public and the private sector, is that that's a far more effective and efficient way of going than just a single general contractor. I've seen when it's just a single general contractor, the things just get out of hand, and performance bonds never work. Anyway, so I'm glad that staff is going in that direction. Within the past couple of weeks, several of us attended a ribbon cutting at Panasonic's, and it was really for an alternate energy efficiency project that they had. Bloom Technology is what it is, and it's I won't go into the details of it, but it provides 75% of their power needs for that one building, and at a reduced cost, and it actually is an alternate source of energy. I'd encourage, as we go into the design phase, that we looked at not just Bloom Technology, but other avenues of energy efficiency where it's cost effective. They said the payback on that was 3 to 5 years. I mean, I don't think we want to do it just for the sake of doing it and have it not cost effective, but certainly cost effective. And I'm glad to see that there's provisions in there for emergency services and operations. Hopefully it's never needed. Where I've seen it, it's a kind of a dual purpose room, and if it's needed, then it expands into that. And just make sure that we have a conduit from the roof to that room so that antenna wires can be pulled for those needs. Other than that, I think it was a great report, great concept. I think the city has worked long and hard. It's been in now 3 different locations, all renting, and I'd certainly like to use that rental money for something else. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
No, they covered it in the staff report.
You know, I'm very excited about the new sheriff substation. It'll be the southeast division substation over here. But Lake Forest, we still have our own police services headquarters here at City Hall.
Yes, Councilmember Voigt, the substation really is dealing with multiple jurisdictions in DeSouth County and providing that support system for several cities. What we envision is what the particular and unique needs are of Lake Forest Police Services would be accommodated in the facility as the staff identified. So whatever it is our community needs, we'll make sure it is provided here.
I'm sure we'll be top-notch because we'll be competing with that place over there.
From my perspective, I'm very excited to see this moving along. I feel very fortunate that I get to serve as mayor when a lot of this stuff actually happens, even though I didn't have a whole lot of impact on it. And so I've got to say thanks to the staff for the countless hours that you all have put in, to my colleagues, both current and previous, who spent a lot of countless hours trying to get it to this point, and specifically to everyone involved for focusing on doing it in the most fiscally prudent way. I look back and somewhat in a naive state, I wrote a letter to the Saddleback Valley News in 2002, and it was titled "Why We Need a Senior Center Today." And then we had something in this room which was fantastic, and I've been in here on a number of occasions, whether it's they're playing bingo or they're having a great luncheon or something like that, and there's a lot of camaraderie, but I know that they're going to appreciate having a dedicated home. But the part that I really appreciate more than anything else, and I think if you've taken one thing away from my 2 years up here so far, it's that fiscal prudency is probably what's most important to me. I want to make sure that we can provide the amenities that the community is asking for, but I want to make sure that we've got the money to do it. And so that's really my focus as we move on. I know that it's taken a lot of time to get to this point. We've got what we perceive to be adequate financing so that we don't have to do any bridge loans or financing. And my focus would be that we continue to head that direction, even if it means that it has to take a little bit longer. But, in the long run, I think that it's what's best for the community. So very appreciative of that. Thank you very much for the report. And if there's no further discussion, then I will, would you prefer that we move this in A and B? Okay, so then I will move that we, well, I guess we're a receive and file on 6.
Second.
And then, so that's as it is. And then approve the attached request for proposal for architecture and design services for the Lake Forest Civic Center project, and authorize staff to solicit proposals for the architecture and design services. So I make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
So there's a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, council members cast your votes on 6A. Item passes 4-0 with Councilwoman McCullough excused absence for an illness. And then I'll move that we approve the attached request for proposal for construction management services for the Lake Forest Civic Center project, and authorize staff to solicit proposals for those services as well under item 6B.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments, questions? Council members, cast your votes. Item passes 4-0 with excused absence from Councilmember McCullough. Very exciting. So, I was just some Boy Scouts before we moved to item 7. There's some Boy Scouts were in the room this afternoon, and I was telling them that a lot of times some very boring things tend to occur in this room, but have very exciting outcomes. And I think this is one of them that's very boring right now. But we'll look back on this night in a few years and say, wow, that was like a very good step along the way to get us to a fabulous civic center. So I'm sure that we'll be doing backflips once we see it in full design and construction. So.
Agenda item 7, legislative and regulatory matters submitted by city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. We ordinarily don't provide much of a oral staff report on this item, but there is one of particular importance, I think, that the staff would like to highlight. While this is sort of an end-of-year report as to the status of some of the bills that you had taken positions on during the course of the year, the one bill of significance in which the city actually was the sponsor was AB 2647. I'd actually like to have Carla Tomaino provide the council just a brief oral report on this one, because it was really successful for the Lake Forest successor agency in the city of Lake Forest.
Yes, it was.
And so I'll turn it over to Carlo.
Great, thanks.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, though, I'd just like to close with that and give a special thanks, at least from the staff's perspective. I know the council shares this perspective, to Assemblyman Don Wagner, who's the author of the bill, We obviously couldn't put it in ourselves. We needed an author, and Assemblyman Wagner volunteered, saw the merit of our need, and agreed to author this bill and shepherd it through the legislative process. And as we know, that oftentimes is not easy. And for him to have secured a unanimous vote in the legislature and then the governor's support, I think is very significant. And so we certainly want to recognize and thank Assemblyman Don Wagner for being the author of this bill.
Absolutely. So, any questions or?
No, just that I know from comments from, some of my friends who are finance directors and also from some council members, there are a lot of cities, successor agencies who felt that they had things that needed to be corrected. And, this one was the only one that from my understanding, that was successful. I think it shows tremendous ability and leadership on the part of Assemblyman Don Wagner and the cooperation of the county and the city in getting this forward. And, you can tell it's a very technical issue, but you can tell how needed it was and how useful it was in the fact that a Republican assemblyman was able to get a Democrat governor to sign the bill. I mean, that means that, Assemblyman Wagner really worked hard to make sure that everyone, and staff did too, to understand the issues and pass this.
As someone who works for State Assemblyman Don Wagner, we got a call from the city the night before the last day to file bills in. I called Assemblyman Wagner, and he was very quick to take a call from our city manager. He's very proud of Lake Forest, and he's very blessed to call it in his district. He thinks it's a great community, but he wants to, I was talking to him today, and it was a very successful bill run. It sat on the governor's desk for a while. It made us all a little bit nervous, but the fact is that the humbug that was up there was that this really only affected one city, and why would he do it for them and not for everybody else? And I think that it's a testimony of our staff and the way that the bill was written to Assemblyman Wagner and his perseverance, and the fact is that the dedication and perseverance of our staff and our lobbyists up there in Sacramento that actually got this signed, because not only is it a Republican bill from a Republican legislator, but it's kind of a Republican district and a Republican area, and they're not really kind to do favors for our area, and it was a favor. And so I want to commend all of you for helping this be successful, because obviously he took it as a feather in his cap too, that he was able to get something through. And it's hard for a Republican to get things through in Sacramento these days, especially with the overwhelming majority of Democrats up there. And he did it, and we get it with surprisingly unanimous votes on both floors. So thank you to Lake Forest staff. You guys did a great job.
I know that it's very complex, because when I had the opportunity to go up to Sacramento and talk before the committee, I only had like 2 minutes, and I don't know how effective I was. So, there was a lot of good work that was put into all this. But just to try to boil it down a little bit, just because the technical part, I think would be difficult for a lot of people to understand without significant explanation. But what do we see as potential cost saving? Just what do we spend in time, and I don't know about that. A whole lot of revenue was or expense was incurred, but what kind of staff time did we spend over the last year just dealing with this process? Great. Fantastic. That's the realistic part to me, that, there's going to be some change here, helps our finance department, and so very excited about seeing that move forward. So, any other questions about that item? Okay, I just have
Just a quick comment. I'm sure that staff is preparing thank you letters for those who worked on it.
Yep, we've already got it in the works.
Yeah.
Yep. I just had a real quick question about AB 1147, the Massage Therapy Act. How that changes now, is anyone grandfathered into the old scenario where local control was taken away, or is this just for new, or is it new and existing? Or? Great. I didn't get a chance to read the bill itself. I just saw the notes there, and I was hoping that was the case, because that would be disappointing if they took away local control and then gave it back to you, but only for new businesses, and created some two-tier system there. So that's good to hear. Okay. Well, with that, then, seeing nothing further on the legislative regulatory matters, then
Another comment.
One more. Okay.
For our letter of appreciation from us as a city, can we include council signatures on that letter too?
Yeah, I think we already have a letter that's signed, but we can do something else as well. I think absolutely, I don't have a problem with that at all. So, all right, brings us to the city manager's report.
I have nothing further this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, council member comments. Council member Bass.
Well, I already mentioned the Panasonic ribbon cutting in their technology. Also was at the Baker Ranch, the ribbon cutting of the Toll Brothers property. Great model homes that they have there. Great for those moving in. Actually, a project manager up there has actually moved into there from elsewhere. I want to thank those involved in the candidate forum. I thought it turned out well, except for the lack of attendance. But I think it was a good process. And also, last week there was a senior health fair held here in City Hall that was extremely well attended, extremely well received by those who were here, the seniors and that. And you got to do some health screening and learn some other things that we all need to know about in terms of our health and safety. And I want to thank staff for putting that on. And then the final thing, which really should have been first, is today was a monumental day in South Orange County. Over at the Great Park, they had the ceremony of starting to tear out the runway. It was a long, hard-fought battle. I know the council, the citizens, and everyone fought on that. The city spent a fair amount of money on that in that battle, and were successful. And we have all long awaited this event of where they start to tear out the runway. With that, thank you.
Great, thanks. Councilman Voights?
I too attended the Panasonic Avionics new generating plant they have there, and what the technology there does is actually to provide the energy for, I think, 3/4 of the energy for all of Panasonic. And so it was a great, and it was no bigger than the size of the chamber here area. So something that we sorely needed in South Orange County with the closing of the San Onofre generating plant. I think that this technology is going to do a lot for us in the future in our area. Also attended the ribbon cutting for the new Toll Brothers homes. Got to drive by my cousin's house. He's a Newport police officer and just bought into the Baker Ranch, and his neighborhood's already all sold out. Their homes are selling well over there. They're beautiful homes. These new models that just opened up just last week are outstanding. I just love the open air feel up there, and the views are wonderful of all South Coast Plaza, Fashion Island. You can see all the way to Catalina. It's amazing that this is Lake Forest up there. So we're very fortunate to have that. Also, there was a Stop the Scamming seminar last Friday here at City Hall. It was put on by Assemblyman Wagner in the State Assembly. They're doing it throughout the state of California because many of our seniors are being scammed by these scam artists. Every time there's a financial crunch, people are searching for money, and people are desperate for money, and these people prey on these elderly people, telling them it's a quick way to make money. And it was well attended. They had some outstanding speakers. Orange County DA, they had the housing, they had the California Bar, actually former state senator, who was that? Former state senator was here actually emceeing it. Bob, you remember that senator's name? But it was well attended, and it was. I think it was well worth having here. So I want to thank the city for allowing that to be put on here. I think the seniors enjoyed it. So thank you. And with that, nothing further.
Great. Mayor Pro Tem Nick?
I thank everyone for being here tonight. Good night.
And with that, I'll adjourn the meeting.